Global poverty is an issue that has plagued humankind for centuries. It is a complex and multifaceted problem that continues to generate heated debates among scholars, policymakers, and activists. Some argue that global poverty is primarily a result of systemic factors such as economic inequality, corruption, and a lack of access to education and healthcare. Others, however, contend that individual choices and personal responsibility play a significant role in perpetuating poverty. In this debate, we will explore both sides of the argument, presenting compelling arguments from multiple perspectives. Advocates of the structural perspective argue that global poverty exists primarily due to unequal distribution of resources and opportunities. They assert that powerful nations and multinational corporations exploit weaker economies, perpetuating a cycle of poverty. These critics emphasize the significance of addressing systemic issues such as income inequality, trade policies, and the debt burden of developing countries. They see poverty as a consequence of unjust power dynamics rather than individual failings. On the other side of the debate, proponents of the individual responsibility perspective argue that personal choices and behaviors largely determine one's economic. The conflict, the second half of The Intruder. They believe that personal initiative, work ethic, and education are critical factors in escaping poverty. These individuals assert that reliance on welfare programs and external aid fosters dependency rather than empowerment. They advocate for self-reliance, entrepreneurship, and the importance of personal accountability in overcoming poverty. Another aspect of the poverty debate revolves around cultural and traditional factors. Some argue that poverty is deeply entrenched in cultural practices and beliefs that hinder progress. They contend that customs such as early marriages, gender disparities, and limited access to education perpetuate poverty. Advocates of this viewpoint stress the need for social and cultural transformations to alleviate poverty, emphasizing the importance of empowering marginalized communities and challenging harmful norms. In contrast, opponents argue that cultural practices are not solely responsible for poverty, and that they often emerge from socioeconomic conditions. They believe that focusing on cultural change overlooks the systemic factors contributing to poverty, such as limited access to resources, education, and healthcare. These critics emphasize the need for structural interventions and economic reforms to eradicate poverty, rather than solely relying on cultural transformation. When discussing global poverty, it is crucial to analyze the impact of globalization and technological advancements. Supporters argue that globalization has the potential to lift people out of poverty by creating new economic opportunities, enabling access to global markets, facilitating knowledge transfer. They emphasize the positive role of foreign investments, trade, and technological innovation in reducing poverty rates. They see globalization as a force for progress. Critics, however, argue that globalization often exacerbates poverty as it benefits the wealthy elite and multinational corporations at the expense of the poor. They contend that globalization widens income disparities, leads to exploitation of cheap labor, and threatens local industries and cultural identities. They advocate for mindful global policies that ensure equitable distribution of wealth and resources and protect local economies. In conclusion, global poverty is a complex and contentious issue that elicits strong opinions from various perspectives. While some argue for structural change and systemic interventions, others emphasize personal responsibility and the influence of cultural factors. The forces of globalization and technological advancements add further dimensions to the debate. By examining these diverse viewpoints, we can strive towards a more comprehensive understanding of global poverty and work towards effective, sustainable solutions.